Yeah, maybe the start of the show, the start of the recording that we release is like, I know that I've got follow up and you've got follow up.
Yeah, maybe we'll see how well it goes, I guess.
It's funny because I said it already.
So, one of the things I was going to mention, now that the garage is starting to have some of just the massive mounds of extraneous stuff get out of the way and kind of cleaned up, when I had talked about one of my uses for the NFC tags post-move was going to be to inventory like tools and that kind of thing. But I found an additional use along the same vein, but as I've started piecing together how I'm going to store different things, I guess it's not really relevant what type of thing it is, but I've got some opaque plastic containers that have compartments that I put all my cables in, and I've got like 3 or 4 different sizes of these containers. So I've got one for power, one for like USB and FireWire and all the ancillary just odd device connections and like home theater connections and all, and then one for my most frequently used stuff. So it's going to be like the Apple stuff and the USB-C stuff, that kind of thing. But I'm going to inventory those, or at least have a tag with a picture and a brief description so that I can remember what the hell I put where, because they are opaque. And if they're on a shelf, I can just easily, which one do I need to grab, kind of thing.
Yeah, you don't even have to pull it down and lift the lid.
Right. And I'm going to expand that to any container that I store on a shelf in the garage over time. I need to start that process probably this week, since I've started putting things where they theoretically will live. But I'm kind of excited about figuring out the best way to make that work, which is insanely nerdy, unfortunately. But it's fun.
It's a proper use of time because it will pay dividends in the long run.
Yeah, I think so. And especially when I think about, and I know you've been here, the small, shallow closet down in the basement. A lot of stuff that's going to go in there is going to be boxed because it's just most convenient to store that way, even though it's not necessarily the most convenient to access that way. But same kind of thing. If I put the tags on that, then I don't have to write on the boxes or try to look through the plastic bins and figure out what's what. I can just have it labeled and know for sure what I need to grab.
I was looking at some of my cables today that eventually I need to organize. I actually have them in a toolbox, and I've got something in that toolbox that I got when I was 17 years old. I think that toolbox I got when I was 18. I've had those things longer than I didn't have those things, but I came across some old Apple VGA adapters.
I came across a couple of those when I was sorting cables.
I've got one for VGA. I have the whatever mini VGA. I don't know what the mini VGA connector they had was called. I don't know what the name was. Like in their documentation, it just says VGA output, but it's not like a. I guess it's VGA, but the connector and the pins are all very different than you would expect to see for the blue VGA. I think that blue VGA is like 9 or 15 pins, something like that.
I think it's 15 because 9 would be serial.
Like how many pins? So this, I'll come back to this with FireWire, but because I had qualms about this and the accuracy and so forth, but I had two, like a VGA 15 pin connection, like a 15 pin female connector. I had a female DVI connector, and it's S-Video and composite. Like that's on the same adapter.
I was surprised. I still have an S-Video cable. Only one. I only have one left, but it's one premium, like 12-foot cable.
Because what if you need an S-Video cable?
Well, I know it's a running gag a lot of times. I can't tell you how many times over the past 3 months I've needed random old cables to either verify something was working to sell, or just to be able to hook something up to do something with long enough to say, okay, this goes in this bin of stuff that I need to retain because I'm going to digitize this thing, and so I need to hold on to these cables for it, kind of thing. I have room to actually do a lot of these things, and so I am actually using a lot of these old cables as a result.
I was gonna say, I was gonna go to the FireWire thing. If I was in the position where when this was a thing that I was willing to die on, the hill I was willing to die on. If I was there now, I would just walk off the hill. But when people would say, "Okay, this is a FireWire 800 cable," and if they handed me a cable that was you would expect 9-pin on one side and 6-pin on the other side, I said, "That's not FireWire 800." Like, yeah, it is. Look at this. That's FireWire 800. I was like, that's not FireWire 800. That's a 9-pin connector. Like, because you have a 6-pin connector over here, it's gonna automatically always be FireWire 400.
Yeah, it's just an adapter cable at that point.
Yeah. Well, it's because the FireWire 800 was backwards compatible with FireWire, and so if you want to go from something with a 6-pin connector to a 9-pin connector, you don't really need an adapter. You have a cable that has. Well, I expect that on that cable on the 9-pin side, it didn't actually have 9 pins, unless you needed 9 pins. But like all the data is still coming across 6 pins.
Yeah, it should have only been 6. Well, it might have 9 pins, but only 6 wires. It might have 9
pins in it to activate the whatever it's connecting to. I was just thinking about, like, it probably still had 9 pins, not sure, but through the cable it's only 6 wires. Yeah, just like you said. And then there's like also the 4-pin connector, which was popular on digital cameras, DV, digital video. I didn't know you could record digital on tape, and I took all my DV, everything I recorded on DV, and I was a teenager in the 90s. I was not tech savvy in the way that I would be today. Anyway, I copied them all on VHS.
You were going to go VHS to mini DV or something to that effect?
I went from mini. No, so the camera.
Oh, you went the other way.
Had mini DV, yeah, and then I.
Gotcha.
Because those mini DV cassettes were expensive, and I didn't know better, and so it's like I only had a VCR. Like it didn't, I was also, the family computer was a Windows computer, and there was no video editing software on there, so it was just out of my mind, to do this. And so, but I remember when my dad bought it, he was like, "I got to buy the best," and he did. He bought a really nice camera, at least in the not even prosumer, just consumer marketplace.
Yeah, it's funny. I still have a mini DV 3 CCD Panasonic handheld that was my backup camera when I was running the Canon XL2, which is the big shoulder mount 3 CCD rig, like the really expensive one back in the day. Or XL, it may have been the XL1. I don't remember now. I'd have to look at pictures. But I think it was the XL1 and the GL2 that were out at the same time. But like I say digitizing, but technically I'm just copying the data from the camera over into Final Cut for those. But I also have a slew of high 8 tapes. Technically, they were recorded on a Sony Digital 8 camcorder. So theoretically, it's the same kind of deal where it's recorded digital on the tape. But I could not, I don't have anything to play those back to see what kind of quality I might have or might not have, or could even attempt to try to preserve from those tapes. But I'm also not willing to throw away those tapes until I exhaust all other avenues for attempting to locate a Digital 8 capable playback device. I assume you're looking up a couple of things there.
Yeah. What kind of stuff do you have on your cassettes?
It's a bunch of random stuff. Most of it is either weddings or multiple avenue or angles from local bands where I was using these as just backup cameras to have other people shoot some video so that I could splice together some different angles
B-roll.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Not B-roll, because B-roll would be like, okay, I have an interviewer, and then you do B-roll. Like you see B-roll in the news a lot.
It's still B-roll because my primary
It's still B-roll?
Yeah, my primary rolls were from the Canon and the Panasonic. So the Sonys were just, hey, take these, go record some stuff. Maybe I'll use it, maybe I won't. So it's still B-roll.
Okay. I can follow. Just that it's not primary.
Yeah.
So I did a thing.
I saw that, and I'm wondering which thing you did.
It's a thing that you did recently.
This is where I wasn't sure if it was the same kind of thing that I did, or if it was maybe like you decided to bite the bullet a little too early and just grab a watch. So that's where my mind went, and I figured you probably weren't gonna do that, but I didn't know for sure.
Yeah, I'm holding out on that for sure. I did the thing where, I also bought a computer. I think I don't know if we talked about this on the show. I bought an Intel machine, the last Intel machine that they ever made, or the last Intel MacBook Pro that they ever made, and then I was like, I think that was a bad idea. Like maybe like 5 minutes after I did it, and I before I pulled the trigger on that, I knew that I could return it. They're like, you can return it if it's unused, and so it got here. I opened it up. It did. I was like, you know what? Still a bad idea. So I sent it back, and I got a M2.
How'd you spec it?
Not nearly as beastly as yours.
That's a wise decision, by the way.
Well, so even now the stuff, the Intel machine that I'm using is I think it's same as yours, 2.6 6-core. No, maybe not the same because mine's an i7. I think you said you had an i9 last time.
Well, my personal machine was the i9. My work machine's the i7. Yeah. So my work machine should be the same as what you're referencing.
Yeah. These had discrete GPUs, right?
Yes. I don't remember if it was NVIDIA or ATI, but I think it was ATI.
Oh, they have it. Apple hasn't used NVIDIA since the 2006 MacBook Pro. You remember those MacBook Pros?
I do, but I thought there was another iteration that they ended up offering an NVIDIA chip in, and maybe I'm just misremembering the 06 one as being more recent because my idea of time is so horrifically skewed anymore.
Well, yeah, I'll come back to that if you want, but because I was around for the whole replacing all the hard drives. Oh yeah, so it has a Radeon Pro 560X.
Should be.
I don't know. Anyway,
actually, I don't know for sure. I was thinking it was 64 gig.
4 gig. It says 4 gig. Oh, that's the VRAM. Anyway, I got a Mac M2 Pro with 10 core CPU, 16 core GPU. So I think that's the base one. And then 16 gigs of memory. Because I'm thinking that 16. I haven't really pushed the envelope on 16 gigs of memory, and apparently like memory is memory goes for supposedly memory goes a lot further in the on the Apple's SoC. So.
Well, that much I can confirm based on my attempts to tax the machine and not really getting as much of a load on it as I thought I might. But I am more comfortable with my choice as a result of knowing what my planned projects are. It's just all a matter of whether I follow through with them. So I think that's all in my hands. But I'm out of that just kind of side tangent. I'll be curious to see what you think of day-to-day activities with the 16 gig, if you even notice any kind of pressure or anything. Because I've been debating getting like a 13-inch Air for my spouse but the max I can configure on memory would be 24 gig. And I think that's overkill for anything that she's doing anyway. But at the same time, it's that threshold, right? Like I look at that 16 to 32 transition as kind of being the sweet spot. Like either you need 32 gig or you don't in general. But if you need more than 16, or if you think you're going to be encroaching on that piece, I think 32 is the next step you should aim for, regardless of machine. And so since you can't configure the air with that, it's given me pause, primarily because she's already using a 13-inch MacBook Pro, and I don't want to go to a larger form factor because she specifically likes that size, that portability and everything. And she uses external monitor anyway, and has for a long time for other things. So knowing that the portability is a huge thing for her, it's like, well, the 13-inch MacBook Air is really my only option at the moment, or I'm just getting the same thing with some updated internals, and I don't know that that's worth it.
Yeah, I think that I really don't think that the 16 is going to be a problem. Like, I think that it'll, based on how they're developing, I think the longevity will prove to be pretty good. But the thing that really clinched for me not to go with Intel is Apple, the expectation that Apple's going to drop support for Intel machines as soon as they reasonably can. Maybe sooner.
I agree. I think the main thing, though, that you're going to end up finding being a benefit, because I don't see support for the Intel machines dropping sooner than you would potentially replace the machine anyway, even if you were trying to maximize life out of it. I think the potential big benefit you'll see is the ability to run like iPad or iOS apps on the Mac. I mean, I've already noticed that being a huge thing for me. And I don't.
Oh my God, I didn't even
really
I totally forgot about that.
I mean, it's been eye-opening how many different things. It's like, oh, I can run this on this machine, assuming the developer, has allowed me to. And sure, it's not a quote-unquote native experience from the standpoint of the UI and everything, but the fact that I could easily launch some of these and use them for the, minute to 2 minutes that I need to grab something instead of grabbing the phone or another device has actually been insanely helpful at times.
I totally forgot about that.
I actually forgot about it too until I started looking at the App Store and noticed I could swap between the Mac App Store and the iPad iOS App Store. It's like, oh yeah, this is a new thing I can do. Did you
almost 2? I guess Apple Silicon's been out for 2 years now.
Well, and the other Apple Silicon device I have is the Mac Mini that runs headless. So it's not like I'm using it day to day and think about that aspect of it. So now that I have one that I do use more regularly, and recently it's been day to day, it's just been a nice additional bonus.
You had one more. Yeah,
I did. One thing I wanted to ask though, and I don't know if I just missed it earlier. Did you go 14 or 16-inch?
14.
Okay. I had a feeling that was the answer. I have become more and more happy with my choice as I've tested out mobile workflows again. So even though I've lost, a little bit of real estate in some of the creative applications, it's so insanely portable. Like, I felt like the 15 was really portable. And in fairness, it is for, its day and age. But my God, the 14 is just insanely more portable.
Well, I think also, like, the last Intel 15, they were smaller. Like, their footprint was slightly smaller, and they were slightly thinner. So we, in a rare move by Apple, they went bigger. And looking at the display, I was like, ooh, going from the Intel 15 to the M2 or the M series on 14, I think it's not going to be that big of a difference because of the how much smaller the bezels are.
Yeah, that's been my general experience so far. Literally the only application I've even noticed the reduction in real estate has been Lightroom, and I would not have noticed it if not for the fact that just overall the image just isn't quite as big. But all of the like access to tools and everything else I would need at a particular moment, that's still there. Like there's no reduction in what I can do. It's just the preview image feels noticeably a little bit smaller, as it should. It's a smaller display, but that's been the only experience from an application perspective where I've noticed it, and certainly not enough to be an issue.
Yeah.
The other piece of follow-up I had is really, really quick. We had talked about it not too long ago that I'm not using my AmpliFi for anything more than a glorified clock at this point.
Yeah.
I still haven't come up with a reason to use the other two mesh points that I have. So if you want to try them and pair them, by all means, they're available.
I was thinking about that every time I pass it. I think like, oh, I should talk to Jesse about that.
Yep, they're just sitting on a bookshelf on top of a stack of plastic bins and kind of mocking me every time I look over that way. Because absolutely, somebody should use them, and if you don't, then I'm going to probably look to sell them. So
I'll buy them for you. I'll buy them from you.
Should we dive into a topic finally?
Yeah.
It's not abnormal for us to go long on introductory topics, but it feels like we made more out of the follow-up than we maybe needed to.
I think we go with your micro topic.
Yeah, that works. So this just crossed my radar, or obviously for normal reasons, but the main reason I wanted to put it in, last week we talked about how a judge in Florida, I think it was an injunction, it may have been a temporary ban. Either way, a judge in Florida banned a law that would negate access to gender-affirming care in general. In 2021, there was a lawsuit in Arkansas where a judge did a similar thing, but it was a temporary injunction, and the final ruling in that case was delivered, I think today. Either way, it was this week as we record. And basically, the judge just reaffirmed that the law is unconstitutional, creates undue harm, it strips away rights from transgendered individuals, and effectively nullifies all aspects of the ban on gender-affirming care in Arkansas. And I'm sure, of course, the state will probably appeal, and there'll be more to it, but it's nice to see a very well-written and formalized permanent ruling against these. I'm trying to be nice and I can't. Like, it's an assault on any individual's choice to do what they want to do with their body, plain and simple. And
what they want to do with their body that doesn't affect doesn't affect anyone, but does not.
It has no impact on anyone else.
Yes.
It is. Yeah. It's one of the few things that there is literally no impact on any other individual. It's kind of the definition of a personal inalienable right in general, but that's a whole different side tangent that we won't go down.
Nicely. No, that was nicely said.
And that was the main thing with the micro topic. Like I'll include a link to the article for anybody who wants to read it, but it's great to see a nice, well-written opinion delivered that reaffirms access to gender-affirming care. It's
one of those things, man. If you wanna, I'm gonna choose chewing tobacco. It's like actually that's a terrible comparison, but the thing is, like, if you want to chew chewing tobacco, that's your own personal right. Will it affect other people? Not directly. And, like I said, it's a horrible thing because trying to be who you are versus indulging in a vice is, I feel like I know that I've really reduced the significance and importance of personal identity, but the comparison is because you have the right to do this to your body.
Yes, and like I followed where you were going with it, and I like the analogy for the sake of its simplicity, because there are a lot of people, and based on our previous conversations, I think you could even include me, that just don't understand the concepts surrounding what it means to be transgender. And I know we talked at length about it, and I've done some additional reading and kind of have at least a better feel for the mental and emotional states that could accompany that type of thought. I still won't say that I understand it well enough for my purposes of wanting to understand it. But I don't have to for the sake of trying to get across the actual need for and positive effects of gender-affirming care. And this follows that same line where, yes, it seems horribly reductionist at face value to compare it to something like chewing tobacco, but it is very much a similar vein from the standpoint of this is a thing that is a personal choice that, assuming you are responsible, has absolutely no effect or ramifications on any other individual in any way, shape, fashion, or form. How does that make it something that you can try to do anything against without it being purely discriminatory?
We live in a free country, or we don't.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. We are, we have freedoms or we don't. And I know we've talked at length about how we don't, more so than we think that we do. But
we are definitely not as free as we think we are.
No.
Sorry, I had to make sure that was verbalized before you continued.
No. After 400 years of oppression, the people of color decided, hey, you know what, we want to fight for our rights. And there was an uprising in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and then coincidentally, we decided in this country that we should have a war on drugs. That way, we could re-enslave the black man.
I know this wasn't necessarily the topic, and so I don't want to take us on too much of a tangent, but there are times when it's really depressing to think about how little progress we've made. And I have to remind myself that while as a society we may not have made much progress, at an individual level, seeing how accepting of differences like my child is, we're getting there for sure. It's just insufferingly slow on so many different measurements and scales that it's easy to get lost in the negative, we haven't made progress.
Yeah, I just hope that in my lifetime we see that tipping point where we go over, it's been an uphill battle long
Me
before
too.
we were born.
I mean, at
and
this
I just
point,
hope that, yeah.
Like, really, at this point in my lifetime, I just want to see people act as decent people.
Yeah.
And I hate to boil it down to that, but it's like, this has become my mantra and calling card to emphasize every chance I get, which is be a decent human being. That's it. That's all I ask. And I really do hope that we reach that tipping point where at least the majority of people demonstrate being decent human beings before I die.
I feel like that's a thing I want to say. I don't agree with, and that doesn't sound very decent to me.
I might start doing that. Just I so want to just lean heavily into this concept, just in
that's not
every
how
interaction.
Folks act.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail it for a bit, but
no.
It's funny because as much as I try to not emphasize that in a show, constantly, it's really become, over the time that we've done the show, it's become the one unifying thing that I want to make sure it gets emphasized more than anything else. And I'm starting to think maybe that's like just part of who I am in my old age.
Yeah. Like at this point, I feel like, I used to be, I wasn't very good at it, but I used to be, focus on like correctness of grammar. And I say I wasn't very good at it because I also made lots of mistakes. I just didn't make as many mistakes as some other people. And, like a little pissant, might point them out. And one time I pointed out, and it was very funny because somebody was being kind of an online bully, and I just kept pointing out all of his grammatical errors, and that was kind of funny. The thing that I have come to learn is like and I know I've said this before, but correctness isn't as important as communication. And if you're communicating the idea, that's all that matters. It's like you don't need to correct somebody if you've understood what they are doing. Like you can, the only time you, so then this is where it is no longer correction, but if you don't understand something, you ask questions. Have you played Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom?
Yes, so I've played both. I beat Breath of the Wild, and I've played on some of the extraneous additional content, and then I picked up Tears of the Kingdom and at least started it. I have not gotten very far because too many different other games I was interested in hit all at the same time. But I do have it, and I've at least started it.
So in the game, you have shrines and you have towers, and shrines will allow you to, and this is for listeners, just filling them in. I know you know. So the shrines are for like tasks, or no, like they're puzzles, and there's a lot of those, and you collect these orbs, and they help you along through the game, and increasing health and stamina. They're a specific set of things, and then there are towers which unlock the map or expose a section of the map for you. And Becca was playing it, and she almost always calls the shrines a tower. And initially I was like, what? Then I got used to her calling them towers. So like contextually, like 95% of the time, I know what she's talking about. But every once in a while, I'll be like, shrine or tower? And she's like, oh, tower, or oh, shrine, because she kept calling shrines towers. And so, that's a point where it's just like, I just need to know, like, I'm trying to understand what you're talking about, and I'm not trying to correct you. I don't do the correcting, or I work very hard to not correct people anymore. And what were we talking about? Because I was going to compare that to it.
we were talking about my insane need to constantly emphasize being a decent human at this point.
Oh, yes.
And how that's feeding so many interactions.
My whole idea of like where the origin of the world comes from, whether you have a soul or not, whether what happens when you die, doesn't really matter to me anymore. Like, I don't need people to know what I know. Like, I enjoy talking about it, like, if we really want to talk about it, no matter what your position is. But really, like, are you being a decent person? That's what's important. Hey, I want to tell you that Jesus loves you. I was like, cool. Are you showing people that you love them?
And that's the big conundrum.
Correctness, or yeah.
I mean, I think that's why I've gotten so hung up on this idea of being a decent human, because being in the South, I'm ridiculously tired of evangelical Christians who are hypocrites. I'm perfectly, that's a really interesting way to say perfectly. I'm perfectly fine with...
Not persecuted.
I know my mind was somewhat down that train of thought. I'm perfectly fine with pretty much every major religion. I have reasons to feel like most of them have some aspect of the thought process right, and they're trying to provide frameworks for how to live life. At a high level, that's kind of how I view organized religion as a whole. And I know we've talked about religion. It's interesting that I don't think we've ever actually fully grasped and understood how unlabeled my beliefs really are, and then I choose a framework to label them for discussion. But that's a whole different tangent that we can, and we've teased it, we've talked a little bit about it, but it's a very abstract conversation that should be tabled for another time, because it doesn't feed the current thought. But the one thing that I just cannot abide, that I will not ever accept, is the way people, especially in the Southeast, want to proclaim Bible reading and church going and all these other activities as things that denote them as proper Christians or people of the faith. And they're fucking persecuting and discriminating against somebody else for whatever reason. Like the whole point of your supposed belief is to love your neighbor and to accept them regardless of flaw and to show empathy and help. Like, there is absolutely no scenario where you judge another person based on any qualifier, whether it's hair color, eye color, skin color, income bracket, zip code, like, take your pick. Doesn't matter. You do not judge another person. You offer them the same love and help and assistance that you offer anybody else. And unless you're doing that, you are absolutely a fucking hypocrite and should not consider yourself any label associated with Christianity. Or, for that matter, pretty much any of the other major religions. But I'll be nice and keep it targeted to just Christianity in the Southeast.
We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap. That felt a bit like a rant.
I felt like that was a good end to part one.
I do too.
I loved it. I loved it.
The problem is I wanted to squeeze in this whole question of when does anything become a cult? That was my response to your notes as a teaser for part two, and I didn't get that far. So I've got to include this.
But you got to put it after the.
I can put it after the outro. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, so when does a religion become a cult?
And I'd love this question, and you would probably, I don't know if that's surprising or not surprising at this point, just given the irregularities that I tend to hold for traditional views. When does anything become a cult is my initial response, because I don't care whether it's religion or Apple or Microsoft or, how many different things can you choose that I can absolutely say that is cult-like. Now, is it actually a cult, or is it just, from the outsider's view, cult-like? And that's an interesting distinction that I wanted to explore as well. But I think the two are intertwined, which is why my initial response is just, when does anything become a cult?